Hello, my name is Matthew Rollason, and welcome back to our Farm Green webinar series, where today we're joined by Boomer Birch from Cogent Breeding. Boomer's been with the business for over 10 years and is passionate about beef cattle breeding, having launched Cogent's signature beef range and growing their beef on dairy portfolio. He will be no stranger to many across the industry throughout the UK and indeed overseas, particularly in the show ring, with many successes with the Blues, Simmentals, and more recently Herefords. With a greater focus on efficient suckler beef production, it would be an understatement to say that genetic selection forms the bedrock of an animal's lifetime performance, and Dunbia is keen to promote that message to our supply base. So without further ado, I'll now hand over to our guest for this webinar, Boomer Birch.
Thank you, Matthew, for that very, very kind introduction. As Matthew said, I'm Boomer Birch. I'm the Beef Programme Manager here at Cogent Breeding in Chester. We have a bull stud here in Chester that consists of around 240 active live bulls, and we're an EU qualified facility, so we make semen for both our domestic and international markets. Just a bit of a brief overview of Cogent and the beef business. Cogent started a beef portfolio back in 2010. And the real driver behind that was we as a business purchased our beef semen from third parties around the globe. And the management and the board at the time foresaw a big future in not only beef genetics, but how those beef genetics would affect the global semen market and what demand would grow over the years. So we really started beef on dairy in 2010, and then as Matthew explained, we ventured out into signature beef, which is our suckler beef range, in 2013. We've seen massive growth in both ranges, in both suckler and dairy beef production and demand for semen. We have a wide range of sires on offer. Our predominant bulls are Blues and Angus for our beef on dairy portfolio, but we do have several other breeds that I'll touch on later in the presentation that we do offer for both our beef on dairy and suckler industry. And I think the guys that we're speaking to in the Q&A later will get to this, but obviously as a UK market, we're well over 60% of UK beef is being produced now from the dairy herd, leaving suckler beef sitting around that anything between 35 to 40% of UK beef, meaning that production now has to be sustainable, has to be efficient, and for me, has to be data-driven when making these decisions to be in a sustainable suckler industry. Challenges and opportunities within the UK, and I think this goes without saying, the main challenges for beef is the consistency of pork and chicken. We know chicken and pork is a very, very consistent product. We have a massive variation in breeds in the UK. Going back 3 years ago, if you look at our average semen order for a beef suckler herd would be around 50 straws of semen. And within that 50 straws of semen, it would consist of 3 to 4 different breeds. So trying to drive consistency within that level is very, very difficult because we know the variance within breeds within the UK, let alone across breeds. Obviously, there's a huge variation in rearing and finishing systems in the UK, intensive, extensive, grain, forage, you name it, the UK's got it. And obviously, there's a huge variation in age to slaughter. Opportunities within the industry. We have the opportunity to become more streamlined. We as a genetic industry have responsibility to make sure that the bulls we are selecting are fit for purpose and suited to the market, whether that's at retail level or at farm level, and also to ensure that those genetics are repeatable within the industry, and we can make sure that any of the bulls that we are producing, that we are breeding, we can go on and select from and source on and improve on within genetic selection. Integrated systems, integrated rearing and finishing systems, ensuring the correct weight and age under certain animal welfare standards that we expect here from consumers and processing retailers in the UK. And obviously creating a British brand and a British product is a huge opportunity. So I'm going to talk you through a bit about genetic procurement, what we do, how we do it. And this has changed massively over the last 10 years that I've been with the company. I think I've been with the company now 13 years, nearly coming up to. And this has changed massively. If you'd have come to Cogent a few years back, our genetic selection would have been probably pedigree, phenotype, and then we'd start to look at EBVs. Obviously, being demand driven and market driven would still be high up there at number one, but pedigree and phenotype would be two of the top three criterias. That's completely changed now, and I think international selection has become a key part of what we do because of genetic diversity, and data and research and volume of data and research has helped drive that. Breeder relationships and internal breeding program. For us, consistency and repeatability has become a big thing. What we want to do is when we supply genetic is make sure that we know if anything happens to that bulls or the next generation of sires, and depending what market they go to, we can produce sires that are consistently delivering and consistently being able to produce what the industry at any level wants. Demand driven, obviously we are an international stud, so we have domestic and international markets. So a lot of our selection process around that is driven through customer needs and customer wants. But I think we get onto the really important one here, which for us is EBVs and EPDs. Now, I know EBVs, and I think Matthew mentioned a little bit about my background, and my background within the industry is very much phenotypic selection, show cattle. And back in my university days, EBVs was a thing of the past, a thing of the future, and a thing that people were very, very skeptical about the reliability. Any data is better than no data. I think that's one of my key things I've taken in the last 10 years. And we have to look at data to be able to drive sophisticated decisions within a business. I'm not going to sit here and say that EBVs are the be all and end all. And I think without going into EBVs too much, and for those who don't understand EBVs that are watching the webinar, an EBV, an estimated breeding value, only takes into account an animal's pedigree performance and its pedigree progeny performance. If I told you there was a bull in AI here that produced over 250,000 straws of semen and sold over 250,000 straws of semen, but it only had 4 pedigree progeny registered into its EBV, it's pretty shocking. The reliability behind that EBV isn't really going to change on 4 progeny. When we know within the industry that bull has probably had at a 35% conception rate across the board, you're looking at 80,000, 60 to 80,000 progeny born here in the UK. With that level of data being lost within the industry, with no records being kept, and us only having purebred data. Having said that, an EBV is only reliable as the data that's being input by breeders. Now we're working with 5 data that's being put into an EBV, it's a CBV to enable us to make our selection decisions. A pedigree is still important. We look at making sure that we're selecting bulls, whether it's maternal or terminal, to produce the type of bull that we're looking for. Phenotype, and obviously being an EU status, an EU stud, health status is vitally important for us. We're working with high herd health status breeders and pedigree breeders, monitoring and accredited for BVD, IBR, lepto, and Yonis. A bit of clarity around IBR. For us, we're still an EU approved stud, an EU legislation. An animal has to be completely clear and negative of IBR. That cannot include an IBR marker vaccine. So we have to have complete clean clarity within that. One of our recommendations we talk to with our breeders and suckler farmers is, if you ever breed a bull that you think may be interesting to an AI stud, whether that's an EU AI stud, vaccinate everything within your herd with a marker vaccine, but don't vaccinate those bulls. that would be of interest to AI studs. So as a company, our main breeds are Angus and Blue, and that is predominantly driven by the UK beef and dairy industry. Angus is a growing market for our suckler beef farmers, and it's a growing market for our suckler beef farmers because the reliability and volume of data that we're collecting that is relevant to a commercial beef industry. Now, whether that's through beef on dairy or through suckler beef, that data is commercial data and it is viable, and you can utilize it within a suckler herd. Hereford demands still a little bit of beef on dairy, but suckler, a lot of female sex semen. Simmental, believe it or not, is a huge sex semen market for us, female sex semen market for us here in the UK and abroad. The Simmental and the breed do a fantastic job of promoting their maternal strengths and maternal capabilities as a breed, alongside the terminal as well. But definitely we see a lot of female sex semen sold. Stabilizer, again, a maternal breed that's driven on stats, figures, performance, and reliable data. It's a breed that we've seen grow massively within our signature beef range and our suckler range, and a breed that, for me, that's done a lot of recording into cow performance, cow management, cow maintenance, and a real breed to get behind. And then we sell a little bit of Limousin. Our main focus here at Cogent is beef on dairy and the dairy industry, but we do have bulls specifically for the suckler system. We have a bespoke, purpose-built index that looks and evaluates commercial data, anything from calving data all the way through to growth and performance, which I'll touch on a little bit later. And over the last 18 months, one of our USPs and one of our biggest growing markets is male sex Ultra 4M beef semen, both for the suckler industry and for the beef on dairy industry. So our top selling breeds, to give you a bit of an insight to what we've sold, beef on dairy in the last financial year, our top selling breed was Triple Impact EMI, which is our ease of management, our easy carving Triple Impact Blue mix. Then followed by conventional Blue semen, conventional Angus semen, Triple Angus, which is the same criteria as our Triple Impact EMI, and then Limousin. And then we move on to male sex semen, which has been a huge growing market for us in beef on dairy, which is Aberdeen Angus, British Blue, Hereford, Angus Triple. We actually do a Triple Angus straw in male. And Wagyu. We all know Wagyu is a growing market within the beef on dairy industry. There's quite a few integrated schemes been established for that. And it's a breed, I think, that's got a lot of future and a lot of mileage to work within the UK, provided we can get the efficiencies right. Signature beef is a little bit of a switch round. So this is our suckler beef, pedigree beef enthusiasts. And you'll see, compared to the last slide, that there's a complete different turnaround. We have Limousin leading the run, still our number one popular breed for suckler industry, closely followed by the Stabilizer, which I mentioned previously has grown massively, both in their multiplier herds and within the outside commercial industry, outside their multiplier herds, for people looking for information and reliability on cow performance, cow maintenance, and cow management, ensuring there's efficiencies or trying to drive efficiencies within their suckler beef business. Then Charolais, Simmental, British Blue. And then we move on to sex female semen. So this is different to the beef on dairy. This is sex female product, which is predominantly purchased through our signature beef suckler beef range, which is Simmental, Stabilizer, Limousin, Solaire, and then followed by beef shorthorn. So in terms of breeds, you can see there's quite a variance, quite a difference. But certainly there's some leading breeds within the industry that are probably selected not just only for their maternal, but also for their terminal strengths. So then we move on to the interesting bit for me, and this is where it comes. We call it here at Cogent the big data era. What does that involve? What does that challenge? Well, we know the industry challenges have posted a complete new frontier with carbon footprint, sustainability, efficiency. We as an industry, as a beef industry, are decades behind dairy. We look at dairy and the evolution of dairy, why I've been in the business here at Cogent. You know, when I first started out, and you look at the dairy industry, you were looking at sort of 4 to 5 years before a dairy bull became a #1 seller because they had to get daughter proven. With the recording of phenotypic data and the research into dairy genetics, that industry has turned itself upside down and on its head with genomics, and been able to do that with genomics. And we as an industry have to follow that. I really strongly believe we have to follow that to be able to keep up with the genetic interval the beef industry has to adhere to, but also to make sure that we're driving efficiency continually and consistently. We need not only to embark on genomics, but we also need phenomics, a new technology in our toolbox, developing a superior and informed way of selecting beef bulls, both for suckler beef and beef on dairy. Why are we recording phenotypes? Future challenges with industry, we're seeing it now. We're in a really interesting place within beef production and dairy production across the whole of agriculture. Future challenges are going to be complex. They are complex. We may not be recording the desired phenotypes currently for future evaluation that we need. Complex phenotypes, or complex challenges, should I say, mean complex phenotypes. Operating a continuous phenotyping system, Cogent are collecting metadata across a lifetime of a beef and dairy progeny in order to answer social challenges such as sustainability, efficiency, and welfare. And I think they're the key drivers here. Sustainability, efficiency, and welfare. We, as an industry, we as a beef program and a genetics company, have the responsibility to ensure that we are supplying genetics that are suited to both areas of beef production, suckler and beef on dairy, that are efficient, they drive profitability, and they're consistently making improvements. And this is why data recording across beef on dairy for us is so important. And what it enables to do, it enables, because of the heritability of the certain growth, performance, and also feed efficiency traits, it enables the suckler beef industry to tap into that data and use it within their business to help improve performance and drive efficiency. So feed efficiency, what we're recording and what we're looking at, we are, bear with me. Yeah, we are obviously looking at our own internal index, which is called EcoFeed, which we run across both our dairy platforms and our beef on dairy platform. The research has established a selection can be made for feed conversion using a trait known as residual feed intake. It's measured individually through our individual animals' size progeny, and we're looking at intake and performance. It's an estimated expected feed intake, and residual feed intake equals actual minus expected. We have feed efficiency trials here in the UK as well as in international markets, and we're currently looking at around a 65 to 70+% reliability on early data, and then reaching the 80% in later life data collected on animals. Obviously, you'll see on the chart here on the graph, we are looking for the efficient animals that are on a low consumption but high growth rates, which gives us obviously pounds per feed or pounds per feed gain ratio. We're looking for the high profit, high growth, high performing animals. How are we collecting our phenotypic data, and how does the phenotypic system work? Well, for us here at Cogent, we have an internal breeding program, which we are genomic testing it. And if we start at number 5 first, it's a bit of a strange part to start on the graph, but we are selecting our bulls through genomic selection. We're using a wide range of a population of sires, both internal and externally. We are making genomic selections both through an external company and an internal genomic evaluation on our sires before they come in. We are then picking the top 10% of those bulls to come into stud. Those bulls then come in, they produce semen. We send the semen out on farm. It goes into cows. The progeny are born. We collect the progeny. At every point of the F1, as you'll see on point 2, the F1 creation is made. We are collecting so many phenotypic points throughout the animal's life, whether it's growth, feed efficiency, performance, health, carcass grades, carcass quality. That animal then is getting fed into genetic evaluation. The computer does its thing with our internal geneticists. We feed that information back into our sire evaluator, identify the bulls, and then the circle starts again in terms of genomic selection of the next generations of sires, which bulls we've already used within the program and have that progeny evaluation data on. It's a really efficient, reliable way of collecting and capturing a massive volume of data, which can be utilized within a commercial industry. And what I really wanted to get, and I spoke to Claire, Matt, and the team previous to this talk, is this is a massive opportunity for the suckler industry to utilize a huge volume of data being collected on commercial beef enterprises. Yes, it's not on a suckler enterprise, but the heritability of feed efficiency, growth, and performance is so strong, so high, it will make a difference within your suckler herd. So if you're looking certainly for terminal traits, production, performance, growth, feed efficiency, it's definitely data and information to look at through all genetics companies. And I think for me, really, the interesting one is the eco feed efficiency that certainly can be adapted to terminal expectations, because we know from previous research other breed societies have done and worked on that feed efficiency is heritable, and more feed efficient cows, suckler cows, is a more productive and efficient cow within your suckler business. So that data can be utilized and used. So feed efficiency in beef on dairy, and how does it look? Well, our measurement, as I said, we call eco-feed. It's a genetic fingerprint of feed conversion efficiency, and it offers a unique opportunity to increase profitability and environmental sustainability. We know there's going to be less land, less usage of fertilizers and pesticides, but there's less water, less fossil fuels, less energy, and it all fits into that sustainability piece. Feed efficiency is a 26% heritable trait. Less methane produced up to 15%, reduced water consumption up to 21%, and less CO2s, and also a reduction in nitrogen. So breeding from a dairy cow with a high eco feed beef size will improve feed conversion efficiency on beef and dairy progeny, but it's also reducing your beef and carbon footprint of beef supply chain, which also can be adapted to the suckler beef industry. And I think that's really, really important. It's that adaptation of data. Another point I really want to touch on, and a bit of an industry changer for us, apologies, I'll just flip back a slide, is the development of sex semen throughout the last sort of decade, and how that can be utilized within your suckler beef system as well as it's being used in dairy beef. Sex semen has always been a bit of a, is it good enough? Was it good enough? Is it fertile? The improvements that the ST Genetics sexing technologies has invested into the R&D behind sex semen has now enabled this product to be extremely fertile. In our field trials on farm, we are seeing comparable, if not better, when used in the correct places with conventional semen. We are now have a number of customers using sexed beef semen on sync programs and achieving well over 50% on synchronization programs with our Ultra Plus 4M product. And I think this is the time now to get behind it, speak to a breeding advisor, speak to an industry expert within AI on sex semen, because the benefits that not only female sex semen can bring to your suckler herd, but also male sex semen, the improved efficiencies with reduced days to slaughter, improved growth and performance on farm, improved carcass yields. I think it's really, really important. And aside from growth and etc., you know, the type of bulls that the industry is producing, we have a saying here at Cogent that the days of blanket using beef bulls is over. Now, with all the data that's being collected, not only on a pedigree level with EBVs and EPDs and genomics, but also on a phenotypic level, on farm with internal programs and commercial data, we know and we're able to identify the real strengths and weaknesses of bulls. And blanket using bulls for me, and certainly within dairy cows, and I really do strongly believe this in the suckler, is a thing of the past. With the data, with the technology, with the sex semen, you can make sophisticated breeding decisions on where to use certain bulls, whether it's breeding replacements, whether it's breeding finished cattle, whether it's you're looking for fertility and you just want to get a cow in calf, whatever that is, there's a scientific, technological answer to that question with both data and sex semen. And I think it's a product that no one should shy away from, because it's going to be a real industry changer. Certainly beef on dairy, we're seeing it now. And I think the suckler industry has been using sex female semen for a long, long time. But now it's the time to really get into that data and look at female performance, male performance, and where you can use those options in what scenario. And I'm not going to hold on this slide because I've touched on male sex beef a little bit. This is an example, and I think it's a really interesting one, not only for the beef on dairy industry to look at, but the suckler beef industry. This is our genetic strategy for our dairy customers and our profitable dairy customers. We offer a genomic testing facility. We have a lab over in America, Genetic Visions, owned by Section Technologies. We process genetic samples and we go into a herd and identify the top 30% of the herd. It should be heifers if your genetic consultant has been doing a good job, but there is some genetically interesting cows in there. You AI and you utilize them to female sex dairy semen and high genetic merit bulls. You then go in and look at the next 20% of your herd. And obviously these percentage can change on replacement rate, but the next 20% of your herd you identify that are still young, still fertile, maybe early lactation, but to you as a business aren't genetically of interest to breed replacements from. They're the females that you go in and use male sex semen on. And they're the females that you want to really go in and utilize that male sex semen product. And then anything else after that gets a beef bull or a high fertility beef product with our triple impact straws. And that's just an example of a breeding strategy that's been adapted here, certainly in the UK from our dairy farmers, but also been adapted internationally by dairy farmers. And I really think that sort of model has a lot of mileage in the suckler beef industry, by identifying elite females, breeding your replacements for those, and then utilizing technologies within male sex beef and other beef semen. And one of our hashtags, obviously, is whatever the challenge, and it has been a big part of our marketing over the last sort of 3 or 4 months. And I think it's a key thing. We as ST Cogent as a company believe we have a responsibility to help the industry drive efficiency, sustainability, and make sure the beef bulls that we are buying and producing are very well suited and fitted to the demand of, we know our consumer because they are number one, our customer, and then throughout the supply chain to ensure that there's a profitable product for everybody throughout the supply chain. So I think that's probably me. I covered most of what I wanted to cover. There's probably some questions from the team on the other end. So thank you very much. And then, on to Q&A.
Yeah, thank you for that, Boomer. It was great to hear how our producers can start to think about genetic selection in their herds and how that can improve herd performance. And I suppose the key message I took away from the presentation was how important data has become in beef breeding and the benefits we can see of that on farm. And so following on from that, we've just got a few questions from our supply base. So the first one I've got would be, which traits would you say are the most important for suckler producers to improve herd efficiency, and how can they select for those?
Yeah, I think for me, the maternal index that an EBV provides, Matt, is a real good indicator, and that's the one that has some real reliability behind it, is milk 200-day growth performance. Those sort of numbers that, we know where milk's having an effect. I think something I would look at If I was suckler farming, and one day I hope that we're gonna maybe to do it as a family. But I think that for me, cow performance and efficiency is key. We know milk's a big thing, and milk um, is a massive affecting factor when it comes to growth and performance of progeny. But I don't think you can underestimate, and certainly with the way the suckler industry is moving, you can't underestimate cow performance and efficiency. And I think, feed efficiency isn't on an EBV and EPD trait, but I think it's something that if you are breeding your own suckler cow or maintaining your own suckler cow now and breeding future replacements, and I'm not saying it's eco feed through ST Cogent or whatever that is, whether that feed efficiency index is, I think feed efficiency and cow size is going to become crucial in terms of productivity and feed intake. We know feed is the biggest variable cost on farm and can be one of the most expensive costs. So if we can have a level of production that we're getting out of a suckler cow for less money, that's going to be a big driver within suckler industry. Milk, positive milk bulls are very, very important because with that efficiency, hopefully becomes milk. We know from the research that's been done in dairy that there's no negative correlation between milk yield and feed efficiency. So I think we could take that away, and by selecting for more feed efficient animals, we're not going to lose milk production. So it's a trait that doesn't negatively correlate. And I think, if you're looking at that maternal base, your overall maternal index for me that incorporates all the traits is a real good selection tool.
Great. And so sort of leading on from that, this one leads in quite nicely. But so why should suckler producers prepare for future breeding decisions? So in terms of a breeding program or strategy, how can you sort of talk about how that might help them?
Numbers is a big thing, Matt. I think numbers and predictability. And I say this with the utmost respect because I'm a beef farmer, and I have friends, colleagues that are beef farmers. But I think as an industry, we are behind the curve with what the dairy industry has done. That industry is solely focused on numbers, data, and output performance. Whereas, yes, the suckler industry is profit driven, but that profit driven has been solely through performance and the output of the finished cattle. And there's so many other bases within that suckler program that can drive efficiency, sustainability, and performance. We talked about maternal traits, cow performance, cow health, cow size, what cow suits your system. And I think along from that, and I talked about blanket using beef bulls, and it's something that we've spoken about at many conferences over the last 6 months. The big data era is here for beef now. There's genomic testing and genomic selection going on in purebred and commercial data behind the scenes, whether it's through retailers, processors, genetics companies. And I think when we look at breeding decisions, every dairy farmer wants the maximum output from their herd, and they will only breed the amount of replacements that they need for their herd, and everything after that has to become a profitable pregnancy. Maximizing every pregnancy on farm. I think that profit per pregnancy is a statement we can take away and utilize within the suckler industry. When you know your replacement rate and what you need, and you've been using the correct genetics, you can genetically select your better performing animals to then breed your future replacements from, which is leaving so many more openings. And this is, for me, is where the interesting thing comes, certainly in the suckler industry, and we know it does for beef on dairy, is male sex beef semen. It probably hasn't been explored enough yet, but we talk about driving small, not one big efficiency, but small efficiencies in different areas. Your customers and your clients will know that steer beef, bull beef, whatever it is more efficient, quicker gains, more profitable for them on the output than heifer beef. So why would you not skew your output of progeny ratio, male to female. The technology is developed. We know suckler, the use in AI and suckler herders increased about 4 to 5 years ago. I think it was around that 8% mark. Don't quote me on that, but I think it was around that 8% mark. I'm going to say I would like to think, and we'd have to probably badger HTB for this, but I think we're probably about 12, 13% of UK suckler cows or UK suckler herds are using or utilising AI. And I think alongside AI with male sex beef, you can make small marginal gains, and looking into those individual performance of animals and not just blanket using bulls for certain jobs will enable these guys to select bulls that are more efficient. And we look at gestation length, and I know it's maybe not a meat or a carcass output, but if you're looking at tightening your calving pattern to making sure you've got animals that are calving in the spring period, tightening your calving block, which means tightening your output, you're not finishing cattle for longer, you're trying to increase softer, more fresh animals. There's bulls with 276-day gestation period that you can really tighten that calving block, real tighten your output, and it's marginal gains. And sitting with a breeding advisor and sitting with an industry specialist, yourselves, nutritionists, whoever that is, and making those minor tweaks throughout that chain to make sure that your breeding program is efficient as possible. And I think your breeding program has to be treated like your nutrition program, your grazing platform program, whatever that platform is. If that answers the question, sorry.
No, it definitely did. I think we sort of touched on there, didn't we, about the end market a little bit on that strategy and where we're looking to work towards. And I suppose the last question we've sort of got here would be, how can those producers then match genetic selection to their end market? Because I think that's quite important, and it's something that people really need to be bearing in mind when they're matching or making those breeding decisions. What do you think about that?
So it's a controversial one for me, Matt. I'll be honest. I sit here and you think, and I spoke at the Youngstock conference at Harper Adams a few weeks ago, and a challenging question I got asked was, you guys are doing all this work and research, which is super for us, but how do you know that's what retail wants? How do we know that's what and is that the future? So I suppose not a challenge, but our question to retail is, what does that look like, and can we get a clear message? And I think that's starting to come out with the platforms that you guys are working on, Farm Green, and trying to interact with customers so they fully understand what the industry wants. And it's making those connections throughout. Things like this for me are fantastic, because what we need is exposure throughout the supply chain to every aspect. And it starts. Our favourite saying is conception to consumption within the industry. We want to understand sire fertility, genetic improvement, whether it's beef on dairy, suckler beef, or dairy, whatever that genetic improvement is. We want to understand early life growth, the beneficial gains that calf rearer is getting, or the suckler farmer is getting in that early stage of life. The store farmer buying stores, where does he make his little bit? Where does he make his genetic gain? At what point does the animal need to be slaughtered? Can I afford to do it earlier? Can I genetically do it earlier? And it's that whole integrated approach.